Hey, 7th graders, Mr. Allard again with another one of our flipped lessons. Today we're going to be talking about the Electoral College, which is one of our vocabulary words for this week's vocabulary set. We've been kind of talking around it, but this is going to be our introduction to talking about our Electoral College or how we elect our president more in depth. I don't have a printed copy of what's going in your interactive notebook, but I do have it here on my computer. So this is what you should have on your and I believe it would be page 67 in your interactive notebook. I don't have my table of contents staring at me, but same as always, fill in the blank as you go. Fill in the blanks with the underlined terms in the notes. All right, here we go. Let's get going. Let's go to, there we go. Let's go. All right, so at the Constitutional Convention, the delegates at the Constitutional Convention had to come up with a couple of decisions. And this may seem really weird because we're very used to having our system the way it is. We've had it for almost 200 some odd years, or a little bit over 200 some odd years now. So this may seem a little bit odd, but we know this from, again, going all the way back, James Madison's notes of all the debates. We know that for a couple of days, for many hours, the delegates at the Constitution debated how many presidents we should have. Now, this may seem a little bit weird because we're so used to having one president, one vice president, but this was something that they actually debated, and you got to remember this all comes back to where they came from. They had one king. They felt that king was acting like a tyrant. They were very worried of having a national government that was too powerful with the Articles of Confederation, etc. So, many delegates argued that a single president would be the best, all right, because they would be able to do, as it says in your notes, clear and timely leadership. Meaning, if something happened, for better or worse, you'd have a person who would hopefully come up with a clear plan in a timely manner. One person is coming up with a decision. It may have to go through Congress depending on what that decision is, but this is the route we're going to go on. This is how it's going to happen, and we're going to be able to respond in a timely manner. One of the big issues with the Articles of Confederation, remember dating back to the Shays Rebellion, it took a while for anything to get done. It was very difficult. You had to have many people agree on anything for it to get done. So this appealed to many of the delegates at the convention. Another group of delegates, led by Benjamin Franklin, thought that there should be a group of presidents, that there should be at least 3 presidents that were elected and named to be the president, because this is going to help prevent a tyrant from abusing power. You're not going to be able to have one person become all too powerful if you have 3. Now, what happened with this in the debates is basically the group that wanted one president won, and maybe not for the reasons you're thinking of. They kind of said, well, if you think one person can be a tyrant, why can't 3 people be a tyrant? So why don't we put in all these different checks and balances and things like that we'll start talking about later in the week that are going to stop that one person from becoming too powerful. If we have 3, those people may be able to outsmart and outmaneuver any type of checks and balances we put in. So at the end of the day, we decide, all right, we're going to have one president to lead the United States, one person in the executive branch. All right, second decision. Let me slide this. Oh, we can get most of that. That's fine. How are we going to pick our president? All right, we've talked a little bit about this. Some of you guys were kind of, you didn't believe me, but trust me, this is how it works. All right, so first, they had 2 things they could pick on how many presidents we're going to have. They came up with 3 ways to then elect that single president. The first way is to have Congress pick the president. So the thinking here is these are delegates of the people. The people have elected them. They're representative in their interests and their ideas. So we can have these people then pick the president. They're more knowledgeable. They're more upper class. They're probably going to be a little bit more wealthy, well-to-do, things like that. Again, we talked about this from the very beginning. These are some of the more wealthy-to-do people at the convention. They're terrified of the farmers. They're terrified of giving them a direct democracy. They don't want it to be a popularity contest. So this is a way they feel of kind of providing a buffer from making the president a popularity contest by allowing the people that we elected to then choose our president. The next one came from a variety of different delegates, was just let the people do it. Have a direct popular vote, just like for anything else. You go to the ballot box, here's the congressperson I'm going to vote for, here's the senator I'm going to vote for, and every 4 years, here's the president I'm going to vote for. Obviously, this was probably the least favorite of any of the different scenarios at the Constitutional Convention, because again, those delegates not very fond of giving that much power to the farmers. The last one is going to be this idea of a group of electors from each state are going to be allowed to pick the president. So the idea behind this is each state, based on a certain number, is going to have a certain number of electors that are chosen by the government to choose who the president is going to be. And for many of our first presidential elections, this is how we did it. There was a popular vote, but at the end of the day, it came down to who did the 10 or 15 electors from New York think should be president. They were going to choose that person, and it wasn't tied to any sort of popular vote. So the convention ultimately decides that this is the best. It still gives people a direct vote, but it gives, again, that buffer to stop it from being necessarily a popularity contest. And they create what is called the Electoral College. That's what we call this today. Each state is given a certain number of electoral votes, which we'll talk about in the next slide, to then pick a president. So how does the Electoral College work? Well, first, the states are going to have an Electoral College number based on their population. So states with a higher population, back in 1790, 1787, your New Yorks, your Virginias, your Massachusetts, those states, they're going to have more electoral votes than other states. That's just how it is. Today, that electoral number is going to be equal to the number of representatives and senators from that state. So we can look and we can say, all right, New York has 29 electoral votes in 2016. That means that they have 2 senators. That means that they have 27 members of the House of Representatives. The state is then going to hold their election, and we have a presidential election. The state holds that election. They count the votes for each presidential candidate. Typically, there's 2, maybe 3 candidates on the ballot today. Back in 1800s, there could be many as 6 different candidates on the ballot, and many of them were from the same political party. Really, today, there's only 2 people who have a chance to gain election. The winner of that state's votes is it's an all or nothing campaign. They're going to get all the votes. So in the state of New York in 2016, we talked a little bit about this in class, Hillary Clinton won about 75% of New York State's votes. That didn't mean she got 75% of 29 electoral votes. She got all of those votes. And so in other states, in a state like Pennsylvania or Ohio, where it was much closer, Donald Trump winning, by 2 or 3% of the vote, he doesn't get, 53% of the vote or whatever. He gets all of those electoral votes. So it's an all or nothing, win or go home type scenario. You either get all the votes or you don't get any of the votes. Here's a quick look. I just thought this would be interesting, kind of look at the difference between our first presidential election and our presidential election in 2016. A couple things you might notice. 1789, there's only one person running, that's George Washington, and he's going to get every single electoral vote. I don't think this will ever happen again in our lifetime unless there's some things going on that shouldn't be going on with our election. You'll also notice in 1789 there's some states that have not voted. The state of New York, state of Rhode Island, state of North Carolina. That's because they hadn't ratified the Constitution yet. We're going to start talking a little bit more about that this week. You'll notice that the Electoral College number is much higher. Pennsylvania has doubled its number. Virginia, it's kind of the same. New York has gone from 10. Massachusetts has gotten a little bit more. You see more states involved, obviously, as we've grown. You're seeing political parties. You can kind of use these 2 maps to explain a lot of the differences of where the Electoral College was in 1789, where the Electoral College is in 2016. All right, that's our flip lesson for tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message on Schoology if it's something only I can answer. If it's something some of your students can help you out with, make sure to put something on the update page underneath everything that I post for classroom materials. Until next time, guys. See ya.